Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'll be going over a widespread severe weather threat that is expected on Saturday, potentially some severe weather on Sunday, as well as the possibility for a tropical storm in the Caribbean sometime late next week. Let's get right on into today's video. Starting out here with your current satellite imagery provided by College of Dew page, we have a lot of convection ongoing here across portions of southwest Kansas, southeast Colorado, all the way up into southern South Dakota. There is a chance we get a spin-up tornado today, as well as 60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail. That will be generally in this little area here. Very small risk for the chance of a spin-up tornado. That low pressure is located way back here into Wyoming, so we got a pretty good open low pressure right there. If we switch on the radar, you can see very light rain showers there across the coastline of Texas. Some heavier rain showers with that activity across southwestern Kansas, southeast Colorado, all the way up into southern South Dakota. Some back-end rain showers back up here. Some more back-end rain showers from this low pressure, and then some just remnant rain showers back up towards Minnesota and Wisconsin, and a little bit of rain up here in far southeastern Maine. In terms of severe weather today, we do have that small little marginal risk for severe weather. Again, 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and a brief spin-up tornado will be possible. Tomorrow we have a much larger marginal risk for severe weather. Isolated 60-mile-an-hour winds and a few instances of 1-inch hail will be possible. Can't completely rule out a brief spin-up tornado, but the tornado threat is lower tomorrow than it is for today. Saturday will be the main risk for severe weather. You could see this very large slight risk for severe storms in that yellow area. Really large slight risk. We'll likely see an enhanced risk by the time we get to our day one outlook. My guess on that is somewhere from southern Missouri back down into Arkansas, and this will most likely be for a 30% or 30 significant wind risk, although we could end up seeing the chance for a couple tornadoes across mainly this area in here, and if we do trend towards a more discrete mode, we could even see a strong tornado or two around the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. However, there's a lot of uncertainty on that. We'll likely see a MCS at some point. It's just a matter of if that will be almost instantly or if it will be a little bit later on in the day. If we can get those discrete or semi-discrete storms before we see an MCS, that will be our maximum tornado potential. And that marginal risk does go all the way up into Indiana and Ohio, as well as all the way back down there into Mississippi, Louisiana, and southeastern Texas. Looking at instability for Sunday now, there is a chance we could have some isolated severe wind gusts here across Pennsylvania, western New York, maybe even into northern Virginia and extreme northeastern West Virginia. However, there's a lot of uncertainties on exactly where that instability will be placed and how much will it be. So I'm guessing 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds, maybe a gust of 65 to 70, and can't fully rule out a brief weak tornado, but that tornado threat should be pretty low here going into Sunday. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media to help spread weather awareness, and if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload a video. If I sound a bit different, I'm currently sick. Hopefully the sickness will be gone before we end up doing that coverage stream on Saturday. Let's get right back on into today's video. Now let's dive on into some model data. So as you saw with the current radar imagery, we are going to be seeing the chance for a brief spin-up tornado or two generally out in this area. Very weak thunderstorms, really not going to see anything too substantial form here, although the isolated severe storm brief tornado can't be ruled out. Then as we go all the way into tomorrow, this is going into Friday afternoon. Not really a lot happening on the NAM3K model run, but this may not be picking up on as much convection as what it should be. So we could have an isolated instance of some damaging winds, isolated 1-inch hail, and maybe a spin-up tornado. But again, that tornado risk is very low for tomorrow. Then as we go into Saturday morning, there is some uncertainty on morning convection. Right now, the NAM3K has next to no morning convection across our main severe weather risk area. Going into Saturday afternoon, not much happens by the time we get to 2-3 p.m. And then finally, by the time we get to about 4 p.m., maybe 5, storms begin to fire along a cold front right here from about eastern Oklahoma all the way up to the St. Louis, Missouri area. Now, what's interesting is if I pull this out a little bit more, obviously the NAM3K is going to have that linear bias, but it does have severe storms all the way up into southeastern Michigan with a very large MCS, a really large MCS across much of our severe weather risk area. And you'll notice it really doesn't have many discrete to semi-discrete storms firing back out here. However, of course, NAM3K has that linear bias once again. So I do think this is somewhat wrong and will probably end up with a more semi-discrete or at least somewhat clustered mode at first out here across eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, southwest Missouri. That's the main area I'd be watching for the potential of tornadoes, maybe even a strong tornado. And the main damaging wind risk, like I said earlier in the video, is going to be focused across just barely east of where that primary tornado risk will be located. Now zoomed out here, taking a look at the NAM model. Today we have this very large bowling ball trough here. Again, low pressure somewhere in Wyoming. That little jet streak is what's causing our very low severe weather threat across portions of Nebraska, Colorado, as well as into Kansas. And then as we go out a little bit further here, that's going to lift off to the north. Could have some isolated rain showers tomorrow in areas like northeastern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, into southwest Ontario. Pushing this even further, going on into Saturday morning. Also real quick, Friday night, you could see we have this just a little area of jet stream over here. Very weak forcing. That's why many of our models don't have big time severe weather happening in that area, because it's just not a lot of forcing. And because you don't have a lot of forcing there, you're not going to have a bunch of instability with this terribly looking of a trough. Now going on into Saturday afternoon, you can see this changes quite a bit. We have a much larger trough here, huge trough ejection in place across much of the north central US and the central US. Then going into Saturday evening, you can see we get a little bit of intensification from this jet stream right on in here. Now the NAM model doesn't have a crazy shortwave developing. You can kind of see a little kink in the jet stream right in this area here. There's a few little kinks in the jet stream here, but not really a very well-defined shortwave trough embedded in this larger belt of flow here. So not the best setup for severe weather, and definitely more of a linear setup for severe weather. Again, any semi-discrete storms will probably end up being on the tail end of this. Now going on into Sunday, there's a chance for severe weather on Sunday as well, mainly across New York, Pennsylvania, back down into West Virginia and Northern Virginia. Now this could shift a little west or east for that main risk of severe weather, but generally we're talking 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, 1-inch hail, and a tornado or two. Now the tornado threat may be a little bit higher than a brief tornado or two if this actually does come to fruition and we see this large and this sharply tilted of a negative tilt trough here. So we want to watch that very, very closely. That could allow for a locally higher tornado threat across Pennsylvania if we actually do see a negatively tilted trough like the one the NAM portrays here. Now taking a look here at the National Hurricane Center, we do have a 20% chance for tropical development out of this area of interest, aiming towards the Caribbean. So this area is going to continue off to the northwest for the next 5 days or so with very minimal development. And then as we get towards the mid and latter half of next week, it will have a chance to become a tropical storm or potentially stronger somewhere across the central Caribbean. A lot of uncertainty with the potential for this tropical storm, but let's go break down at least some of the possible solutions on our ensembles. Now taking a look at the European ensembles, you can see our area of interest right on in here. We're going to pull this out 240 hours out, and you can see there's quite the amount of agreement that this will be heading towards the southern Lesser Antilles. Where it goes from there is a lot more uncertain. Some of these ensembles want it to hang it out here right in this area, just kind of stalling in that area. Some gain intensity, some end up making landfall around Honduras. You do see just two ensembles take it up towards, one towards eastern Cuba, one towards the Dominican Republic. So those at the moment are outliers. The general thinking is this will be heading west as probably a tropical depression, either west of the Lesser Antilles or just before it gets to the Lesser Antilles. And then somewhere in this area, it will likely end up becoming a tropical storm. Where it goes from that area, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's over a week out at that point. Now, here's the GFS ensembles, and this is actually different because you don't see the tropical wave here. So the GFS ensembles, all of them think that this will not have a chance to develop until it gets towards probably the central Caribbean, whereas the European ensembles, as you saw before, had a chance for a tropical depression around the Lesser Antilles. Pulling this to the end of the GFS ensembles, you can see many of these have a tropical storm or hurricane forming in the Caribbean, and many of them also cover it back up towards Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. So really there's the main two scenarios here is it stalls out somewhere out in the Caribbean and then heads towards like Honduras or the Yucatan Peninsula, or it stalls out in this area, really gains intensity into a tropical storm or hurricane, and then probably moves up towards Cuba or the Dominican Republic. But this is far out, so there's a lot of uncertainty on it. Right now we're just watching it very closely, but I at least wanted to just give you the idea of possibilities we're watching here over the next coming days as we eventually wait for this to be designated as an invest, probably in about a week or so, assuming that it does develop at least to some extent sometime mid to late next week. All right, y'all, that is it for today's video. I greatly appreciate you watching. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. I'm hoping to be able to do a live stream on Saturday. No content tomorrow. I'm hoping to get better tomorrow and get this sickness out of here. Thankfully, it's fairly mild. That's why I was able to do a video today. So hoping that I'll be able to live stream it Saturday sometime. And again, just watching for a brief tornado potential today, as well as isolated damaging winds and isolated large hail tomorrow. So I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll catch you guys hopefully in Saturday's live stream. Stay safe, watch severe weather in the tropics. Goodbye.